Welcome back, YouTubers. Today I'm going to show you how I built these shelves. I'm not going to call them bookshelves because they're really more designed for DVDs and in my case videos. I still have old videotapes, so this is good for videos, DVDs, Blu-ray and possibly light paperbacks. It's not built to take a great deal of weight, but it's perfect for archiving a video collection. Now this is a modular unit, you can see one there. This whole project is built out of something we have in the UK called Conti-board, which is effectively particle board or chipboard, which is laminated with a white sort of fairly thin plastic. It's not terribly expensive. This particular stock is 6 inches wide and I'm using 8-foot lengths, and the shelves are just under 2 feet. So they're not too wide, so they're able to support the weight of the DVDs without too much trouble. These Conti boards come with this label, get some shelf esteem. Now the best way to get this off without tearing it is to do what I'm doing now, which is to lift it all the way along one edge and just remove it in its entirety. I've tried this many different ways and I found this is the only way that really removes it in one piece, otherwise it tears. And then what I do is I just get a piece of paper or cloth. I'm just using white spirit. Just go over it because there's always a bit of glue around the edge. Just remove the glue. Anywhere else where you might see some glue, just get rid of it. And that's how you remove the label. This is the jig that I'm using. This is the first shelf I cut. So push the wood I'm going to cut back against the fence. Line up this end. I just do that by feel. Take my pencil, draw along this end. So that's the mark that I'm going to be cutting along. Now when I line this up, make sure that the teeth of the saw are on the waste end, so they'll be on this side. So the tooth that's angled to the right will just touch the line. That's just touching. Make sure it's firm against the fence. Let's tighten this down, keep it in place. Now this Conti board does tend to chip, especially as I'm using one of these Evolution saws, and it's not a particularly fine blade. It's a general purpose blade for metal and wood, and also the saw itself does not turn very quickly. So I just put this painter's tape on here, 2 layers, push it down where it's going to cut. I just bring it up to this end, and instead of pushing it all the way down, once the teeth are underneath the board, I leave it there and just push it back, and that seems to generate the best cut that I can get with this saw on this type of material. It's about as good as you'll get it with one of these saws. The last thing I have to do is I have to take one of these shelves and I need to cut it down to 11 centimeters, and that's going to go under the bottom of the first shelf facing the front. Makes a little platform for the shelf to sit on. I don't know whether you can see this, but the higher the blade, the nicer the cut. I had the blade just peeking above the laminate and it was breaking off quite badly. On the back, it seems like the reverse is true. Where the blade was higher, you got more chip out, where it was lower, you got less. It's not going to matter that much because when that's installed, it'll go like that, and the first shelf will overlap. There'll be a setback of about ½ inch, so you're not going to see it anyway unless you're lying on the floor. The last thing I'm going to cut is some plywood spacers. I know that the material I'm using is 6 inches wide, so I'm going to start by ripping these into 6-inch wide pieces. So this will be the spacing for the DVD and video shelves, 9 inches. And this is the bottom of the cabinet, and this shelf, the first shelf, sits on there like that. I cut a piece of wood here that enabled me to set this piece here, the thickness of the material I'm working with, back from the front edge. I cut two. I've got one there and one over on this side. That's just to support the wood. The last thing I did is I placed this against the top, drew a pencil line underneath it, which is that one. Now that represents the top of this piece of wood. So then I placed that like that, drew another one underneath it. Those two lines represent the placement of this. Then you can see I bisected it with another line, and I just nail gunned 4 brads in. I'm using brads that sink in, they don't have a head on them, and I'm using 1.5, so that should penetrate into the shelving about 1 inch. It'll probably be a bit more because it sinks into the wood here. On this side, once I established where the nails should be from taking the measurement from this side here, I just set it up on this engineer's square and mark the line along the back here where I'm going to nail it. There we go. So that's the first part. Now the next thing will be to install this bottom shelf. This will help keep everything rigid. What I'll do here is I'll take the center point of the shelf, make a small mark, and then from there I'll draw it down the side. That's my nailing line. Now what I can do before I proceed is I can take this block here, which I know is square, and bring it to the front here, so it lines up the top of this piece here that I've put my hand on. Then this should rest up against it, so that won't kick in. And that's nice and square, I'm quite happy with that. We'll start one close to the front. Try to get one close to the back. In this case, I'll have to flip this over. And I'll just do 2 in the middle. There we go. Same on this side. 5 brads in each side. Now you've seen the process, so what I do now is just repeat it. Take the wooden spacer out, move it into the next location, making sure that it's flush up against the bottom of the shelf which is fitted. Do the same on both sides. Take your pencil and your shelf, select the best face to go outwards. In this particular case they're both pretty good. So I would put it in this way. Offer it in. Take the centre mark, it's basically just an eyeballing. I put a little bit of mark on the side there. That can be removed later with a cloth. Line up my square, draw a line down the side. I'll have to go around the other side to do that, but I'll do that when I'm nailing. And then what you do is you just make sure the front here is level. It's not sticking up or too far back, just get it nice and square. Make sure this shelf is pushed up against the block. Using your line, fire your brads in. Now what I normally do is put one in the top, one in the bottom so that the shelf is secure, and then I can let go. And then do the 3 in the middle. There we go. Let's get that. Just a hair below the surface, nothing too much. Check the bottoms in line, nice and square. I'm going to go one in the middle, and then in between those two. Well, I've just finished it. It's fairly durable, you'll be surprised. It will take all the weight of all the DVDs or CDs without any problem. If I was building a CD shelf, which I am doing next, I would reduce the space between the shelves down to about 6 inches. Now, if you've been following along, you'll notice that I've pencil marked along here, and I've used the pneumatic nailer and nailed into the shelves. I've done 5 nails on each side, which is plenty to support it. And that's fine, because if you stack these next to each other, none of this is visible. This is all concealed. As the other shelf butts up against it, you won't see any of these holes. And if one of these is at the end of a run, and you will see it, then that's what I cut these extra 2 pieces for. And you would lay that along this outer edge, so in effect you're doubling this up. And then you'll nail it maybe every second shelf, whatever you think's appropriate. Just nail it through here, a couple of brads. Just pick your shelves, probably I do it every 2, or wherever it needs to be closed up. Use this sort of thing to hold it together, and line up the face so it's nice and flush, and then drive a few nails in, and that gives you a nice finished product. You will have some slight nail holes on the inside. Use a little bit of filler or some white cork or whatever you might have just to disguise them. Apart from the time, it cost me about £35 in material. Well, here they are, the finished product. I ended up building 7 of these units to span this wall. It's about 14 feet. I think you'll agree they make a nice way to display all these videos and DVDs. In the UK we don't use the cardboard dust jackets, we use plastic cases. And they're not standardized, they can come in any size. For example, up here you can see this one. It's almost to the top of the shelf. So when I built these shelf units, I took that into consideration. That Lone Star one there, for example, is almost to the top. So 9 inches gives me clearance for the tallest videotape boxes, and of course the DVDs and the American videos, they all fit without any problem. So I think you'll agree it looks nice. When I fitted it to the wall, I started off in the centre, found the centre point of the wall, I fitted this one. It's just sitting on the floor, and I put a little L bracket at the top, so it's screwed to the back of the shelf and to the wall, a little plug into the wall. And the next one I left just freestanding, and then I went ahead and did the same L bracket on the third one, And I would have left that freestanding and then done the next one over, the fifth one, but because that's the end of the run, I put a bracket on that one. So a total of 5 brackets. You can see down there on the floor that by putting the factory edge down, you get a nice clean finish. Looks very nice. They're open back shelves. This has one advantage, that if you have plug sockets like you can see there, or Cat 6 or TV cable, you don't have to cut holes in the back, so they're quite useful in that regard. The bottom plate, the kick plate, is slightly higher than the skirting board there, you can see on the left. That enables me to push this right the way back to the wall, as long as I take a cut out on both sides of the upright at the back so that they'll fit over the skirting board. So you can use a jigsaw for that, or cut it by hand, whatever, just so that there's clearance and you can push the shelves back to the wall. These are the clips I use to bring the cases together. You can see one assembled there, and there it is apart. There it is in place. I built a little wooden jig, drilled a hole through it, and used the same jig for each of the fittings, drilled through both shelves once they were clamped together, and then put the little screw in and tightened it together from both sides. I put one at the top, missed a shelf, then another one, missed a shelf, then another one, all the way down to the bottom. And I would have done that on both sides of the shelves, all the way along the shelf units. What that does is it locks all the different DVD units together in one piece, and then the 5 L brackets at the top screw to the wall, hold it and stop it from falling forward, and it sits very comfortably on the floor. There's enough weight there to stop it moving about. Here's another project you can build. This is for CDs. You can see there where the 2 cases come together. Now this particular case I'm using for CDs. At the bottom there you can see cassette tapes. And then there's just sort of general storage at the bottom. There's audio books on the right there. So if you use the methods that I've shown you, you can build this sort of thing and other units for your storage needs. I just want to thank my subscribers for sticking with me, and for people that are watching today. If you've enjoyed this video or you've learned something, please leave a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed already, please feel free to do so. And I hope to see you soon when I make my next video.